Is anyone out there?
The elevator groaned before it even started moving, a metallic whine that clawed through the quiet of the empty lobby. Marcus stepped inside, his briefcase heavy, his eyes flicking to the dull fluorescent lights overhead. They flickered once, twice, and then held, casting a jaundiced glow across the scratched steel walls. He pressed the button for the 23rd floor. Nothing happened. The doors shuddered as though struggling against some invisible force, then slid slightly ajar. A draft whispered up his legs, carrying a faint scent of mildew and something else, coppery, like blood dried into rust. "Just a glitch," he muttered, though his voice sounded too loud, bouncing off the metal. He tried the doors again, firmly, hard. The mechanism clanged and resisted. Something in the pit below groaned, long, deep, vibrating in his chest. The elevator lurched. The lights flickered, then silence. A whisper scratched against his ear. "Not human, not familiar, don't leave." Marcus froze, his knuckles white around the handrail. The doors jolted violently, refusing to close. He pressed the emergency button. Nothing. The fluorescent lights dimmed, shadows pooling into corners he hadn't noticed before. And then the floor indicator blinked. Floor 2, 5, 12, skipping numbers, pausing on floors that didn't exist. Somewhere below, the machinery growled, hungry. He wasn't alone. Marcus had always hated elevators. Not the small enclosed spaces, the possibility of being trapped, but the unknown they carried between floors. The eerie silence, the mechanical heartbeat hidden beneath the smooth panels. Today, however, he had no choice. The office was late, the night heavy and still, and the stairs. Well, 23 flights wasn't an option. He stepped in, pressed the button. The doors groaned and clanged louder than usual, but the elevator had always been old. The lobby smelled of polished concrete and rain leaking through the wide glass windows. He'd noticed it before. The faint copper tang, like someone had scraped a fingernail across iron. As the cabin lurched upward, Marcus felt a prickle along his spine. The hum of the machinery was wrong, slower. The lights overhead flickered, throwing the elevator into brief darkness, then a yellowish haze. He tried to distract himself. "Maybe I'm just tired. Maybe the building's old. Maybe. A voice cracked the silence, faint as a breath, seeming to come from nowhere. "Marcus." He froze. The name was correct. His own voice had never echoed in such a tone. He turned slowly, scanning the cabin. Empty. "Hello?" His voice cracked against the metal walls. No answer. Just the soft, persistent groan of the elevator. The doors rattled again, slightly ajar, revealing a sliver of darkness that should not have been there. Beyond them, the building extended, its floors impossibly long, hallways stretching into shadows. Marcus pressed the button for the 23rd floor again. The indicator blinked erratically. 3, 5, 7, 11, 23. Then stopped. The lights flickered. A child's laugh echoed faintly, high-pitched, somewhere below. He should have been alone. He was alone. A cold sweat broke across his back. He grabbed the handrail, trying to steady his racing heart. Something wasn't right. And yet, he had no idea what was coming. The elevator didn't move anymore. At least not in the normal sense. Its mechanism hummed, but the numbers skipped, the lights dimmed and flared, and the shadows inside grew thick, solid almost, pressing against the corners. Marcus pressed every button. None worked. Then he noticed the first movement. A reflection in the steel wall, a figure standing behind him. He spun around. Nothing. He tried to call for help, pressed the emergency button, pulled his phone from his pocket. No signal, just the low mechanical growl vibrating through his teeth. The whispers began, at first incoherent, indecipherable. Then a voice, low, cracked, and unmistakable. "Don't leave." Marcus staggered back, heart hammering. He knew that voice, it was him. Yet it wasn't. Each syllable twisted his own tone into something alien. He remembered the stories, old rumors about the building. Floors that didn't exist, elevator malfunctions, staff who disappeared without a trace. But he'd never believed them. Until now, the walls began to breathe. The steel expanded and contracted, shadows flowing like water. He tried the doors again. They resisted, groaning as if holding back some monstrous weight. Then, for a brief moment, they opened wide enough to reveal the lobby. But it wasn't the lobby he had entered. The floor tiles were cracked, dark stains spreading, and the reception desk. It was old, He stumbled back into the cabin. The doors slammed shut, or at least he thought they did. The reflection in the steel wall shifted again. This time there were more of him. Children, teenagers, adults, all trapped, all staring. Silent, pleading, and then the elevator moved. Not with mechanics, but with intent. It dropped, swooping past floors that didn't exist, sounds of whispers and cries flooding the cabin. He could hear the gears, or maybe teeth grinding, voices screaming in unison. He banged on the walls, begged, prayed. Nothing mattered. Each stop revealed more of the impossible. Floors flooded with shadow, walls bleeding darkness, doors opening to voids that seemed to stretch into eternity. His reflection laughed at him. And it wasn't his reflection. The elevator halted. The doors opened onto a floor he didn't recognize. The lights were dim, greenish. The smell of iron and decay filled the cabin. The whispers had grown louder, chanting a chorus of Marcus's screaming, laughing, and there it was. The figure, tall, featureless, black as a void, stretching to the ceiling, impossibly thin. It didn't move toward him. It simply was. The shadows obeyed it. The air thickened. Time slowed. Marcus. The voice came from everywhere. From behind, in front, inside his head. You belong. He tried to run. The doors refused. He pounded the walls, screamed. The briefcase slipped from his hand, sliding across the floor as if gravity itself was wrong. The elevator shuddered violently. He clung to the rail, eyes wide as the walls seemed to close in, pressing against his chest. The reflections multiplied, hundreds of versions of him, all screaming, all trapped, all begging. I'm here! He shouted, hoping for mercy. The figure leaned closer. Not a movement, but an inevitability. Marcus's body froze, every nerve alight with terror. Stay. The doors slammed shut. The cabin shuddered. The lights went out. Silence fell, heavier than the metal walls around him. When they flickered back, he was alone. Or so he thought. Hours, or maybe days later, the doors opened onto the 23rd floor. Marcus stumbled out, shaking, pale, silent. The lobby was empty, polished, normal. People passed, unaware. Phones rang, elevators moved. Life went on. He wanted to tell someone, anyone. But how do you describe a floor that doesn't exist, reflections that scream, and a shadow that claims you? He left the building, walked into the rain, tried to breathe. The air was heavy. Every reflection he passed in shop windows flickered, slightly wrong. Just a hint of black in the eyes, a whisper at the edges of thought. The elevator didn't forget him. He knew that. He could feel it, waiting in silence for the next ride, for the next person. Waiting to open doors that would never close, and somewhere, deep in the recess of his mind, a faint voice whispered again, Marcus, don't leave. A man pressed the elevator button and stepped inside. The doors began to close, but then hesitated, shivering as if caught on an invisible hinge. Must be a jam, he muttered, pushing them shut with his hand. The doors resisted. Hard. Then he noticed a faint scratching sound coming from the gap. It was slow, deliberate, like fingernails tracing the steel edge. He froze. Hello? The scratching stopped. Silence filled the cabin, suffocating. But then, from somewhere deep in the shaft, a low moan started. Soft at first, then growing, resonating through the metal walls. The doors rattled violently, refusing to close. He pressed the button for his floor. Nothing. The indicator flickered. B1. 2, 8, 13. Skipping numbers like a broken countdown. Something else moved behind the metal walls. And this time, he could hear it breathing. Ethan had never liked elevators. Crowded ones, empty ones. Ones that seemed too old or too new. They all made him uneasy. But tonight, after a long shift at the hospital, he had no choice. He wanted home. He wanted sleep. The lobby smelled faintly of disinfectant and damp carpet. The elevator doors opened, quiet as a coffin, revealing the familiar cabin, its brushed steel walls gleaming under fluorescent light. He stepped inside and pressed the button for floor 14. The buttons beeped once, twice. Then nothing. He glanced at the floor indicator. G, 1, 3, 14. It blinked erratically. The elevator shuddered. Ethan chuckled nervously. Old wiring, huh? The cabin grew colder. Shadows pooled in the corners, dark as spilled ink. He shivered, hugging his jacket tighter around him. The first whisper came from behind. Not audible words, A sound just beneath comprehension, a hiss like dry leaves scraping across concrete. He spun. Nothing. Just the elevator walls, reflecting his wide eyes back at him. Then he heard a voice. Low. Childlike. Don't go. Ethan swallowed, trying to steady his voice. Who's there? No answer. Only the hum of the elevator's ancient motor. Something shifted behind the panels. The doors trembled, shaking as if struggling against a force unseen. Something was keeping them open. Something that wanted him inside. The cabin grew tighter. Or maybe it was just Ethan. The walls seemed to breathe, expanding and contracting with a slow, unnatural rhythm. Every time he pressed the emergency button, the red light blinked once. Then went dead. A reflection appeared. Not his own. A thin, pale man, eyes hollow, standing behind Ethan. Each time Ethan turned, the figure was closer. Ethan's heart raced. He pressed the button for the lobby. Nothing. He tried the floor 14 button again. It lit briefly, then dimmed. Whispers echoed in the walls. Snatches of sentences. You can't leave. Doors won't close. Don't. The elevator lurched. Not mechanically, but as if the shaft itself had twisted. Floors passed in impossible order. 2, 7, 11, 4. The lights flickered, shadows racing across the walls like crawling smoke. Suddenly, the floor indicator blinked. 0. A floor that did not exist. The door slid open. Ethan stepped out into darkness. No lobby, no floors, just endless black stretching above and below. He turned back. The doors had vanished. A small, high-pitched giggle echoed from somewhere. Ethan squinted, seeing movement. Dozens of tiny figures in the shadows, faces pale, eyes black, all staring. Some resembled children, some... He ran, but the floor stretched, elongating unnaturally. The walls closed in, corners folding into themselves. Every reflection in the steel showed him older, younger, terrified, screaming. The whispers grew coherent. We are the doors. We are the floors. You belong. Ethan's mind reeled. He had to get out. But the elevator wasn't just a machine anymore. It was alive, hungry, waiting. The lights flickered violently. The shadows coalesced into a figure, impossibly tall, featureless, limbs stretching like smoke into the corners. It did not walk. It simply was, moving through space without motion. Leave, Ethan whispered, tears streaming. The figure leaned closer. The whispers invaded his mind, hundreds of voices chanting, screaming. The walls of the cabin warped. The handrails twisted in impossible angles. The floor dropped away. Ethan screamed. The reflections multiplied. Versions of himself, screaming, clawing, pleading. One of them stepped out of the reflection into the cabin, touching Ethan's shoulder. Cold, hollow, real. He stumbled back, heart hammering. No, no! The elevator shuddered. Panels bent, shadows leaking through the seams. The figure leaned closer, its presence smothering, inevitable. You belong. It hissed, every word a dagger in his mind. The doors slammed shut, or maybe they opened. Ethan could no longer tell. Darkness swallowed him. Time folded. The whispers became his own voice, repeating endlessly, Don't leave. Don't leave. Don't leave. Ethan awoke on the lobby floor hours later, or maybe it was morning. He was drenched, shaking, alone. The elevator doors slid closed normally. Life continued around him. Cleaning staff, commuters, the hum of fluorescent lights. Nothing was wrong, but he knew it was. In the reflections of shop windows, he saw fleeting shadows behind himself. In quiet corners of his apartment, he heard faint giggles. The whisper, doors won't close. Doors won't close. The elevator was still alive, still waiting for the next person, the next ride, the next soul. Ethan never rode alone again, and yet every time he saw an elevator, he felt its silent pulse, patient and hungry. The elevator groaned as Clara pressed the button. She stepped inside, briefcase in hand, and the doors began to close, but then shuddered, hesitating mid-slide. She frowned. Stuck again? A sudden, sharp scraping sound echoed from the gap between the doors. Metal, or something far worse, scratched along the edge. She jumped back. Then the cabin went still. No hum, no mechanical vibration, just silence. A whisper slithered through the space, low and deliberate. Don't leave. The doors rattled violently, refusing to close. Clara pressed the button for her floor. Nothing. The numbers on the indicator skipped. 5, 9, 14, 22, 99. And in the corner, something moved. Something waiting. Clara hated elevators. Crowded or empty, new or old, she had always felt uneasy in them. But after working late at the architectural firm, the stairs weren't an option. She wanted home. The lobby smelled faintly of wet carpet and industrial polish. The elevator doors slid open like a mouth, revealing the familiar steel cabin. She stepped in, pressed the button for floor 18. The buttons beeped, then flickered. The lights overhead buzzed softly. Shadows pooled in the corners. Clara's pulse quickened. Something about the reflection in the steel wall felt off. Not quite her own. A faint voice broke the silence. "Clara?" She spun. Empty cabin. Her breath came in shallow bursts. "Hello?" She whispered. No answer. Only the low thrum of the elevator machinery. Something shifted in the walls. A shadow moved independently of light. The doors trembled, as though held back by an unseen force. Clara's stomach knotted. Something wanted her inside. Something patient. The elevator seemed to grow smaller as she stood inside, walls compressing slightly, reflections warping. Each time she pressed the emergency button, the red light blinked once, then died. A reflection appeared. Not hers. A tall figure, thin and pale, eyes empty, standing behind her. Each time Clara turned, it drew closer, impossibly fast, silently. She pressed every button. Floor 1, floor 18, emergency. Nothing worked. Whispers curled through the metal, faint at first, then louder. "You can't leave. Doors won't close. Stay." The elevator lurched, jerking violently as though the shaft had twisted itself. The floor numbers skipped in erratic order. 2, 7, 12, 3, 18. The fluorescent lights flickered, shadows twisting unnaturally across the walls. Then the indicator blinked. 1, a floor that didn't exist. The door slid open, revealing infinite darkness. Clara's reflection multiplied in the steel, each version screaming silently. From the void, faint giggles and whispers emerged. Tiny figures appeared, children, adults, her own younger self. All staring, all waiting. Clara stumbled back, heart hammering. The cabin wall seemed to breathe. The elevator wasn't a machine anymore. It was alive, hungry. The lights flickered violently. Shadows merged into a single tall figure, featureless, black as void, limbs stretching impossibly into corners. It didn't move, yet it was. "Clara," whispered countless voices inside her head, outside, everywhere. "Stay." The cabin twisted, handrails bent, floor dropped. The reflections of herself multiplied, screaming, clawing, terrified. One stepped out of the steel into the cabin, touching her shoulder, cold, hollow, real. Clara screamed, pounding the walls.
"No, leave me alone."
The figure leaned closer. The whispers became chanting, relentless. The walls pressed against her. Time slowed. The elevator shaft itself stretching and twisting. "You belong," it hissed, every word sinking into her mind. The door slammed or opened. Clara could no longer tell. Darkness consumed her. The whispers merged with her own voice, repeating endlessly. "Don't leave. Don't leave. Don't leave." Clara awoke on the lobby floor. Hours? Days? She didn't know. The elevator doors had closed normally. The world around her appeared unchanged. People moved, lights hummed, life continued. But she knew better. The shadows lingered in every reflection. The whispers never truly left. The elevator waited, patient and hungry, behind polished doors. She never rode alone again. Every elevator, every cabin, every metal door held the same pulse. Silent, inevitable, waiting. Even now, she swore she heard it when the wind rustled through her apartment. Doors won't close.